Okay, so it's recording right now. So you can start typing your full name in the chat box so that I can check your attendance. Thank you. So last time, nagtaka yung iba na tawag na to, nag-recite na pinasend ko pa rin sila ng picture ng kanilang 10 adjectives, right? Because that time, wala pa akong class record. So now, I have the class record na. So, itali ko na yung lahat ng participation nyo during our online class. And that will also be tallied, the attendance will also be tallied starting right now. But of course, yung attendance, yung orientation, meron kayong 10 points din nun. So, I can share you later on the screen I have na meron ng mga grades. Okay? So, I think next week or next week, depende sa school calendar, we are about to have the prelim examination. That will be your first long quiz. Okay? So, lahat na napag-aralan natin from the class orientation up to this or kung kailan ba gagawin ang ating long quiz, yun yung lahat ang coverage ng inyong long quiz. So your long quiz is very important because it comprises the 40% of your grade, I think. So part of that will compose the 40% of your grade coming from your AQ or attendance, quiz, and recitation. So 40% yan lahat. So dati, ang school has 4 examinations. So we have prelim, we have midterm, semifinal, and final. So luckily, because of what is happening right now, we have the recently pandemic situation. So the school will conduct 2 major exams that will be your midterm examination and your final examination. So I think these 2 major examinations um, will be conducted in the school, I think, scheduling, but that depends on the situation and of course the LGU guidelines ng LGU kung pwede. But that those are the 2 major examinations that we will having for this class and the other class. And what else? Your long quiz is very important. I don't know pag gagawin ba natin siya offline or online like this, a live class situation. But I think it is more convenient siguro sa atin pag naka-live class siya and for the teacher and for you. Kasi pag offline, ang dami nyo pang gagawin and then i-pass pa ganyan. So, hindi tama yung assessment na yun pag offline. Kasi if I will conduct that through offline, I think marami kayong resources na pagkukuhanan. So, hindi talaga ma-assess kung ano yung na-learn nyo sa subject. For example, answering the assignments, okay? So, I can really assess or evaluate kung ang assignment nyo is galing copy-paste from the Google. Okay? I have an app na pwedeng isang sentence from the Google, I can download it there at lalabas yung resource niyan, resource or source niya sa link or source galing sa Google. Okay? So, meron ng ganyan. So, better kahit okay lang na mag-copy-paste kayo, but you have to rephrase it and you have to cite who is the author. Okay? For example, you have a saying. Parang okay kaayo ang saying ni Socrates para sa imuha or ni Plato. If you copy-paste it, you put it on a quotation. Okay? That is citation. Ibig sabihin, in-acknowledge mo na sa kanya yun na knowledge, not yours. Okay? So, pag copy-paste talaga ha, word per word, you put it inside a quotation. Okay? And then the author. All right? So, but you can rephrase it using your own words, you can rephrase that. Yun yung tama din. But you have to cite pa rin the author. Okay? So I think rephrasing is better than copy paste. Kasi pag copy paste parang wala lang. Wala kang supporting details or what, okay? Pag i-rephrase mo kasi, ibig sabihin, dinagdagan mo siya na sarili mong ideya and compare and contrast. For example, um, itong saying na to, parang nakaka-relate ako dito. So, ganito ang mga ideas ko about niyan. Ganyan. So, that is how we rephrase it, okay? Or we rephrase the sentence. For example, if the sentence is in passive, you rephrase it into active voice, parang ganyan. So you can rephrase it like that para naman hindi talaga copy-paste from the Google, okay? So you must practice that for especially pag meron na kayong research journals or thesis nyo or ano pa yan, that is so very important, ha? Na mag-cite kayo ng authors, cite ng sources, okay? Pag hindi nyo sariling ideya yon, you must cite the author kung kanino nyo kinapi yun. Okay? Are we clear? All right. Um, so this day, we will have the lesson 2 of our class. So this will be entitled the self, society, and culture. Okay, so last time we discussed about philosophical perspectives in defining the self. Okay, so philosophical meaning in the discipline under the philosophy, okay, under philosophy. So this time we are going to discuss the self, defining the self in terms of sociological point of view. Sociology naman tayo, di ba? So course outline natin, we have different perspectives. So first we have the philosophy, and this time we are going to talk about the self, society, and culture, or the sociology or sociological point of view of defining the self. Okay, so now let's go. So for this day, can you see the window entirely? Is it claro?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Thank
Yes, ma'am.
you. Okay,
Yes.
so now we have the lesson objectives. Number one, you're going to explain after this our online class, you must explain the relationship and among the self, society, and culture. Ano ba ang self, ano ba ang society, at ano ang kultura? Two, describe and discuss the different ways by which society and culture shape the self. Third, compare and contrast how the self can be influenced by the different institutions in the society. We have five basic institutions in a society. Four, examine oneself against the different views of self that were discussed in the class. Okay? Bebas, can you please turn off your mic? Jerry, turn off your mic, please. All right, thank you. So now let's go. All right, so we have here an introduction. So sociological point of view in defining the self. So in a very long time, the self has been debated, discussed, and conceptualized, diba? By philosophers. So that is a very long time, maybe 2 centuries, na yun talaga yung parang pinag-usapan ng mga philosophers. Okay. Brian James, you are presenting your screen. Can you please turn it off? Brian James. Click mo yung stop presenting. Brian James Abueva. Ano raw? Anong skip ad? Okay. Thank you. Okay, can you see the screen? I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
can you see the presentation now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, so in a very long time, the self has been debated, discussed, and conceptualized by philosophers. Sila talaga yung pinakauna to answer or defining the self. But eventually, okay, Brian James, turn off your mic. All right, so eventually, Abueva, turn off your mic, please.
Ma'am, ikaw lang ang makita.
Okay, wait a minute. All right, is it okay now?
Okay na, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, in a very long time, the self has been debated and discussed and conceptualized by philosophers. So, eventually, with the advent of social science, okay, so it became possible for new ways and paradigms to re-examine the true nature of the self. So, hindi lang pala ang philosophers ang merong interest to define the selves. So, nag-emerge na ang social science, there comes the sociologists. Okay, so thinkers just eventually got tired of the debates on the relationship between body and soul, body and mind, and whatever it is, na dualistic form of the self, di ba? Parang ganoon talaga yon in the during the times of philosophers, merong dualistic ang self. But eventually, parang they get tired and they need to shift point of view. So yun yung pag-emerge ng social science. So it shifted into another focus of discussion, giving the new ways of knowing and the growth of social science, the analysis of the relationship between the self and external world emerged. Okay, so next. So, okay, for example, so we have the social science. Kung ano nga ba ang parang point of views talaga ng social science or ng, marami tayong branches of social science. So, I think the better or the best discipline under social science that defines self is the sociology and the psychology. So, I think um, social psychology ang tawag niyan. But sociology is your um ano ba? Sociology is the study of the society, the human behavior, ano ba yung mga human patterns, your culture, and um basically is yourself to a group. Yun yung sociology. The psychology is a self to himself. Parang ganon, di ba? Pinapag-aralan yung brain and human behavior. So, social psychology is a mixed. So, ang ano nga ba, intindihin mo ang sarili mo and your relationship towards the group that you are in or the community that you are in. So, itong yung sociological point of view of defining the self. So now, do you know Tarzan? 'Di ba? So the story of Tarzan is so famous, okay? So a famous Tarzan story is about a little boy named Tarzan who was left in the middle of the forest, right? So growing up, he never had an interaction with any other human being but apes and other animals. So what do you think made Tarzan who he is in that time na parang um growing up parang si Tarzan is parang ano din siya he became an animal in effect, 'di ba? Just like Sarah Rowling, can you please turn off your mic? I can I can hear the feedback of my voice. Thank you. All right. So Tarzan became an animal in effect because of his environment. Okay. So why do you think is that? Sinong makakapag um share ng kanyang idea. Bakit kaya parang naging animal din si Tarzan, growing up in a forest with animals and apes around him?
Ah, saga.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir, ma'am.
kustorya, ma'am.
Ma'am ako, ma'am.
Okay,
Kustorya, ma'am.
Saga.
wait a
Yes, ma'am.
minute. Sa-
Kustorya.
wait lang ha. Admit ko muna yung Alright, so let's hear Custodio daw.
Masa ganito, ma'am?
Okay, so why do you think Tarzan became who he is after living with animals in the forest, after living with apes and animals? He became
Um,
like an animal too.
pwede Tagalog, ma'am?
Taglish, pwede.
Sige, ma'am.
Can you turn
Because,
on your camera, Derek?
dili ko, ma'am. Maula ko.
No, please turn on your camera so that I can see you.
Ayun na lang, ma'am. Ay, sauban na lang.
Ako, ma'am.
Saga, ma'am.
Ako, ma'am. Ako, ma'am.
Saan
Saga,
na
ma'am.
yun si Custodio? Custodio, bakit ayaw mo turn on your camera?
Wala pa siya, ma'am.
Maula ko.
Bakit maulaw? Do you know na it's a protocol pag meron tayong online class na that students should turn on their camera? Who's with
Katulugon man,
you
di ko,
there?
ma'am.
Who's with you there?
Ah, pamangkin na ko.
Volunteer, ma'am.
Yay, ma'am.
Okay. Please turn on your camera, okay?
I volunteer.
Okay, John Valerio.
Ma'am, ano gana yung question? Ulit.
Why do you think Tarzan became like an animal after living inside the
Okay, ma'am.
forest?
Kuan, ma'am, because,
Valerio,
may
what's your
crush siya
real
sa,
name? What's
sa
your
mga
real name
animals.
first? What is your real name?
Silvan Valerio, ma'am.
Silvan.
Ma'am.
Kaya nalilito ako sa iyo
Yes, ma'am.
ba? Silvan?
Sorry. Opo,
Silvan
ma'am.
ang last name mo?
Hindi po, ma'am.
Ano?
Valerio po, ma'am.
Valerio talaga ang last name mo?
Opo, ma'am.
Bakit wala ka dito sa listahan? Sige, sige, go.
Ay, ano, ma'am? Sir, ma'am. Yung pinagkatiwalaan niya yung mga animals, ma'am, upang bantayan yung gubat, ma'am, before he leaving. After he leaving, ma'am.
Ano?
Ma'am, may I answer?
Ma'am,
Okay,
saga, ma'am.
pinagkatiwalaan niya ang mga animals na mag-alaga sa forest? I don't think so. Okay.
Saga, ma'am.
Sino pa dyan, Del?
Ma'am, kustorya, ma'am. Ako na, ma'am. Dili
Ma'am,
ko.
ma'am.
Jandel muna. Turn off your mic. Jandel muna. Sige na, go. Please say your full name first.
Jandel Mondoñedo, ma'am.
Okay, go.
Ito question, ma'am.
Hay, nako, paulit-ulit. Bakit naging parang animal si Tarzan after living with animals, after growing in the forest, living with apes and animals?
She like one ma'am, he grow in the forest with one ma'am, different kind of animals. So moto na kuan siya na yung patasan kay sa parehas sa mga animal.
Can you say it loud?
Ay one ma'am, kanang bali he grow in the forest ma'am, tapos he grow in the forest with the different kind of animals ma'am. So moto ma'am, kanang bali ang yung patasan ma'am, attitude kay kuan best sa animals kay ang mga animals kay mo mga kuan parents.
Yes, okay. Thank you,
Ma'am.
Jandel. Let's hear
Ako, ma'am.
Sarah
Pwede pa, ma'am.
Rosalyn.
Kustorya, ma'am.
Marami pa akong question mamaya. Huwag kayong mag-alala. Sarah Rolene, go.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am. Because na-adapt niya
Can you
yung
turn on your camera? Okay, I can see you now. What's your real name? What's your last name, I mean?
Cebuco po.
Okay, go.
Because natural lang po sa tao po na maka-adapt sa environment katulad kung saan ka nakatira. Natural lang sa tao kung magaya siya kasi yun ang nakikita niyang mga hayop lang yung nakakasalamuhan niyang kaya natutunan niya din yung paano magalaw ang hayop kasi yun din yung nakikita niya sa paligid niya. Wala siyang kasamang tao. Kaya yun din parang asal hayop or gawaing hayop din yung ginagawa niya.
Okay, asal hayop talaga. Okay, thank you, Sarah Rolene. Okay, that's the correct word I am finding, adaptation. Okay, so eventually, if you're growing in an environment, in a different environment, different from others, you will adapt. What is the pattern? What is the okay, Sarah Rolene, please turn off your mic now. Okay, so as we grow old, we will adopt what is happening in our environment. We will adopt the culture, the way of life. We will adopt the language. We will adopt how is the religious belief ng iyong family. You will adapt kung ano ang mga nasa palibot mo, 'di ba? Kung meron kang religious family, you will adapt that. So, growing up, magiging relihiyoso ka rin, parang ganun. So, likewise with Tarzan, Tarzan grew up in the forest without any human. So, without any existence of any human. So, ang na-adapt niya is ang mga gawi ng mga animals. So, kaya, kahit na person, I mean, kahit na human si Tarzan, hindi siya naging parang human person because of that, because of his environment. But I think um, he has he has a different feature in himself na iba din sa mga animals because Tarzan can feel emotions. Ano pa ba? Tarzan can fall in love with other human, right? So, growing up, okay, growing up, siguro, yun yung na-adapt niya because maliit pa siya. Hindi pa ganun ka-develop yung mind niya na meron siyang sa kanya lang talaga ba, parang meron siyang gawin na yun parang tawag nito, voluntary. Parang voluntary para sa kanya. Kasi pag bata tayo, kung ano talaga yung natutunan natin, ano talaga yung nakikita natin, we imitate that, right? Alam niyo yung what is imitation? Yung ginagaya-gaya mo ang mga matatanda. That is why pag merong mga bata sa bahay, dapat you should talk to them or you should talk to others na inside in the family na dapat malumanay, na ma-respectful, ganun. Kasi yung mga bata, they imitate that. So, I think Tarzan grew up like animal na parang wala siya nagalakaw, nagakamang siya like apes, um, hindi siya marunong magsalita because language is I think very, ano ba tawag nito? Very hard to adapt yung language, 'di ba? Kasi kahit na tinuturuan pa nga tayo, nagkakamali tayo. Like in English, 'di ba? Tinuturo sa atin 'yan galing from elementary to college, pero parang hindi pa rin tayo marunong. So tinuturo 'yan kasi ang language. But the mother tongue, of course, kasi pag ano talaga yung na na tawag nito? Ano talaga yung language na doon ka tumubo, yun yun talaga yung maa-adapt mo. So, for example, we are Bisaya. So, yun talaga yung parang ano natin, parang comfort language natin. Okay. So, yun yun. So, yun yung sociological point of you in defining the self. Your environment. So your environment has a very great impact to you as you grow. Okay. So let's have this. Do you have your pen and paper? All right. So we will have
Yes,
an
ma'am.
activity. So this is entitled Myself Through the Years. Okay. So for an instruction, you're going to draft or no, you're going to draw this one, two, three boxes. Okay. Boxes. You titled it My Elementary Self, My High School Self, and My College Self. Okay. So we are going to reminisce or examine ourselves in three different stages in our life, okay? And then you list down the differences in yourself or about yourself across these different stages, okay? So I will give you 10 minutes to discuss or to list down the differences about yourselves in these three different stages. Okay, after 10 minutes, I want you to take a picture of your output and then send it to the GC. You write
Ma'am, pwede pakiulit, ma'am.
Okay, so you write your name first at the top of the paper. Then you make three boxes. Okay, for example, no, not drawing, list. Okay, I have here an example. Okay, first box, my elementary self. Second box, my high school self. Third, my college self. You list down, oh, sentence ba yan, words ba yan, phrases ba yan, you list down all the differences that you can examine within yourself across these different stages. Ano ka nung elementary ka? For example, meron dito, I am vulnerable and weak because I still don't have self-esteem. I am not confident with myself. Number two, my high school self. I developed to engage with people and I developed self strength within me and I liked sports. College life. I am now more responsible and more determined to reach my goals. Okay? Ganyan. So what are the differences in yourself across these stages? Okay? 8 minutes left.
Pwede
Ma'am,
Tagalog.
kahit pila lang sa isa ka box.
Yes,
Ma'am,
yes.
pwede Tagalog.
No, English dapat. Pwedeng word, pwedeng phrases, pwedeng sentences. Basta lahat ha, hindi lang isa. Kung ano talaga yung differences na makita mo sa sarili mo. You examine yourself.
Ma'am, sa GC, pasa ma'am.
Ma'am, saan ipasa, ma'am?
Okay, are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you're done, take a picture of it, then send it to my FB Messenger account.
Thank you, ma'am.
Others, please turn on your camera so that I can see you working.
Ma'am, wala pa ako naman. Isa.
It's okay. You still have 4 minutes to go.
Ma'am, sa understanding, ipasa ma'am, sa GC.
Hindi sa GC, sa akin pala. Sa FB Messenger ko, wag sa GC.
Okay po ma'am, thank you.
English po.
Ma'am, pwede Taglish?
Yes?
Ma'am,
Kaputol-putol sa di mong
putol-putol
grado.
akong ballpen. Bisag dili nimo masabtan.
Bakit putol-putol ang ballpen mo?
No.
Joke lang yun
Nahulog
ha,
man gini last time,
Jerry.
ma'am.
Sige na, pasa mo lang.
Sige, ma'am.
Okay. Time's up. Please take a picture and then send it to my FB Messenger account.
Ma'am, lapis akong gigamit, ma'am. Pwede, ma'am?
Okay lang, basta maklaro.
Sige, ma'am.
Okay. Tignan ko ni maklaro ng mga itsura sa akong estudyante ba? Magpapasagid ko aning mga picture sa inyo ha ba?
Ma'am,
Okay,
nakasend na ko si
so
ma'am.
thank you. Okay, so check ko yan mamaya. Alright, so so we have differences growing up. We have differences throughout these three stages of our lives because we have different environment, right? Okay, so I will ask, do we have Sheila May Ferrer here? Do we have, okay, Sheila May?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, I'll ask you, okay, ano yung output mo and why? Why do you have differences throughout these three stages in your life?
Isa-isahin ko
You
lahat, ma'am.
can sum it up. Summary.
Okay. Um, my differences about my elementary self, high school self, and college is about um, learning what is right or wrong, and then um, I have so much learned from my mistakes. Then a lot of and I have encountered a lot of problems lately, and then I
You're talking
um
about what? You're talking about your elementary self, high school self?
summarizing na, ma'am.
Okay, summary. For example, during my elementary days, I am ganyan.
Okay, during my elementary days, I'm just enjoying of being a kid, being playful, and I don't have a control of what I want to do. And then
Okay, how
I'm
about your
still
high school
learning what
self?
is right or wrong.
Okay.
My high school self is I just develop my talents. I gain friends, true friends, and I am being vulnerable about love being in first relationship.
How about
And
your
then
college?
my college self is I am more goal oriented, know how to handle situations. I have so much learned from my mistakes, time management from my studies, and time for my baby and my family. And then last, looking forward for my future and families after I finish my study.
Okay, very good. Let's give a hand to Sheila May.
Thank
Yan,
you.
maganda ang output niya. Okay. Jerry, can you please turn off your mic? Okay, Custoria. Okay, thank you. So we can examine ourselves and list down different words, phrases, different, tawag nito, version of ourselves throughout these three stages because each stages has its own environment, right? Elementary days, we are surrounded by ang mga classmates natin noon parang pareho lang din natin na parang walang kamuwang-muwang sa mundo, 'di ba? We are surrounded by these people. So that is why parang ano talaga tayo, children. Parang child talaga tayo. We're a kid, 'di ba? Parang ganun. Okay. So, yun yung elementary self natin. Next, our high school self, we can develop talents. Yeah, sabi nga ni Sheila, we can develop talents because in high school, we are surrounded by, parang marami na tayong classmates, surrounded by different departments, different clubs na pwede natin salihan sa high school that will develop your talents or skills within you. So, meron na tayong mga pwedeng sasalihan na ganyan. So, that is why parang nade-develop na natin kung ano man yung merong kakayahan tayo. In our college life, dito, I think we are more in academic pag college na. Sa high school, parang ang madami sa atin, murag gara-gara, parang, di ba? Parang talents lahat, skills, parang sports, sa kanta-kanta, sayaw-sayaw, parang yan yung madami sa high school. Actually, kung sa akin din, yun din yung maalala ko na mas marami akong extra kuri-kuri kesa college. Sa college kasi you are focused, 'di ba? Focus ka na, you are being pressured by your peers and especially your family. You're being pressured by the environment. So focus na tayo. So sana kayo din focus din kayo, okay? Because ang academic nyo sa college is very important. Yung grades nyo, kahit na minor subjects lang, pero hindi nyo alam kung anong trabaho ang papasukan nyo in the future. Because every subject, meron niyang mga representation. For example, kung sasali ka gusto mo meron ka palang plan B na gusto ko palang magtrabaho ng ganito. Tapos, yung tinitingnan pala ng mag-evaluate sa'yo during interview, yun pala na subject mo. Meron mga ganyan, we don't know. We don't know ano yung and what future holds for us, right? Okay, so now let's go because we have um pila na lang ato ang time. Okay, so give me 10 minutes to discuss the rest of the slides. Okay, so what is the self? So in contemporary literature and even in common sense, the self is commonly defined by the following characteristics. First, separate. Ang self natin is separate from others. So it is meant that self is distinct from other selves. Ay, hindi makita ang slide? Makikita nyo
Hindi,
hindi?
ma'am.
Opo, ma'am.
Hindi, ma'am. Ikaw nakikita
Wala,
namin, ma'am.
Oh,
No, ma'am.
alright. Sorry.
Makita, ma'am.
Makita raw. Okay. Mag-resume ako ha. Wait.
Na, ma'am.
Ayan na. Okay na? Okay. So, ourselves,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, these are the common definition of the self in contemporary literature. First, separate. Okay, so that means we are distinct from the other selves. It is always unique. You are always unique. Even twins have unique characteristics, di ba? Hindi magkakapareha. Two, we are self-contained and independent. The self can exist in itself. Its distinctness allows it to be self-contained with its own thoughts. Meron kang sarili mong thoughts, meron kang sarili mong characteristics, meron kang sarili mong emotions. Hindi pwede na ang meron ka, ang iniisip mo ay siya ring iniisip ng iyong kapwa. Hindi lahat. Siguro may mga times na we think alike, but not every time because we are self-contained and independent with our own self. We are consistent. It has personality that is enduring and therefore can be expected to persist for quite some time. This allows it to be studied, described, and measured because we are consistent. Why consistent? We have this consistency, hindi natin yan nababasa, pero ang sarili natin merong consistency. Even our body clock, we have our body clock. Meron tayong consistency. That is why yun bang, merong tinatawag na patterns. Meron kang pattern sa sarili mo. Pag detective ka, pag nanonood kayo ng mga movies, yun yung pinag-aralan ng mga detective to find out ang mga sino gumawa ng crime, mga ganun. Siguro later on, especially the criminology students can tackle about that pag mga ganyan. Kasi we have our patterns. May mga patterns ang mga tao. Next, we are unitary. It is the center of all experiences and thoughts that run through a certain person. It is like the chief command post in an individual where all processes, emotions, and thoughts converge. Lahat, lahat.
Ma'am, time na ma'am.
Ay, grabe.
Ma'am, sorry ma'am.
Okay, Valeria, you can leave now, but please give me 8 minutes, okay, to discuss the rest of the slides because ano ba ya tayo?
Sige, ma'am.
Meron tayong mga tawag nito constraints kanina, okay? All right. So next, we are private. Each person sorts out information, feelings, and emotions, and thought processes within the self. This whole process is never accessible to anyone but the self. Okay? We have our own secrets. Private tayo. Kung ano yung nangyayari sa sarili mo, ikaw lang nakakaalam nun. Unless sinasabi mo sa boyfriend mo, sinasabi mo sa parents mo, or whatever is that. Pero meron talaga tayong mga secrets na tayo lang talaga ang nakakaalam. So that is why we are private. Okay. So we are, wait a minute, bakit hindi nag-change ang window ko? Dali eh. Okay. So wait. All right. So we have the social construction theory. So this is the under the sociology, a theory that will help you define the self. So this last characteristic, yung private ha, this last characteristics of the self suggests that the self is isolated. Oh, may isolated pala. The self is isolated from the external world. It lives within its own world. Oh yeah, separate. Yun nga, hindi, ano yung last na discuss ko? Private, right? However, we can see that this will clash with the idea between the self and the external reality. Okay, for this will help understand the self of a clear idea of what it might be, what it can be, and what it will be. So the social contractionist perspective will help us understand this view. Okay, so social constructivists argue that the self should not be seen as a static entity that stays constant through and through. So, 'di ba? Sabi ng contemporary literature, we are consistent, we are private. So, we are ano pa bang isa doon? Yeah, consistent I think. So, yun yung sinasabi ng tawag nito ng literature. But in contemporary literature, but social constructivists, or the sociologists do not believe na tayo ay static. Ibig sabihin, stationary. Yun bang palagi kang ganyan. Ganyan ka na talaga. They do not believe in that because we are, um, we change. We change in, we change depending on the situation, depending on the environment that we are in. So, yun daw yung parang ano sila, yung ano ba, contrary. Ibig sabihin hindi sila magkatugma. Hindi magkatugma yung definition nila. Okay. So rather, the self has to be seen as something that is unceasingly flux in a constant struggle with external reality and is malleable in its dealings with society. Malleable, ibig sabihin flexible ka kung ano yung nangyayari sa environment you. For example, we are Filipinos, but ang Filipinos, pag pupunta sila sa ibang bansa, they are flexible kung ano yung mga rules doon because that is a person. That is human person. Flexible siya kung ano nangyayari sa environment, okay? From from this environment to another environment, we can eventually adapt to the environment. So that is why we are multifaceted persons. So let's go back to the activity that we have described. So meron kang iba-ibang environment through your life, throughout the three stages of your life, because you have different environments like this social institution. So we have this. This is our environment, okay? So we have the basic social institutions. What are the basic social institutions of the society? We have the family, education, economy, government, religion. So yun yung nagpapalibot sa atin. So throughout the stages of our lives, itong mga institution na ito, paiba-iba din sila, right? We have different government system nung elementary tayo, magkaiba din yung government system natin ng eto na, right? So yung family natin siguro meron silang mga beliefs dati noon, but today meron ding mga naiba sa mga beliefs nila. Ganon. Though ang sabi ng contemporary literature, we are constant, we are consistent, but throughout the time, we are not, because we depend on the environment. We are malleable to our environment. Ibig sabihin, flexible tayo, nag-adapt tayo kung anong environment meron tayo. Our economy is not the same yung elementary pa lang tayo sa ngayon, right? Okay, maybe our religious belief is different. O dati yung elementary ka pa, hindi ka masyadong ganito keeping the faith within you. Pero nung na-develop na talaga na-develop na yung human mind mo, na-develop na yung mga perspectives in life mo, meron ka ng mas malakas na faith in God right now. So, ganun. So, magkaiba-iba talaga. Alright. So, we ourselves play different roles. We have different roles in our community. For example, right now, I am your teacher and you are my students. But after this class, iba na naman ang role mo. If you are a mother, you will attend to your child. Nagiging mother ka na. Iba-iba yung roles natin. In a family, we do have our roles. For example, you're a daughter, you're a son, you may be a father, you may be a mother right now, cousin, o ano ba, kung sino ang kasama mo, it depends on ano yung role na ginagampanan mo sa buhay. Ito din yung sinasabi ng social construction theory. We act depending on our roles. We even have gender roles because we have our own culture. Okay. Ito na tayo sa gender roles. Okay. In a family, we have our different gender roles. For example, in a patriarchal community, sa atin dito, patriarchal community, yung naniniwala ba, ang society naniniwala na ang mga lalaki talaga yung head ng family, ang lalaki ang maghanap buhay, ang lalaki ang susundin sa family. That is a patriarchal community or patriarchal family or society. Okay? So kahit na nalampasan natin yan na stage, but still, meron talaga tayong ganyan. Yung Philippines, because we are raised and born with that culture, patriarchal culture. Naniniwala tayo na ang lalaki talaga maghanap buhay, di ba? So,
Lalaki superior, ma'am.
yes?
Halata na ang lalaki kay superior.
Yes,
Superior.
yes. Superior. Siya yung masusunod kasi siya yung head ng family, siya yung naghahanap buhay. Ganun yung patriarchal society. And kahit na ngayon, it still exists. Kahit na meron naman talagang pagbabago sa society natin, but we cannot deny the fact na meron pa talaga. Meron pa talaga ito na culture dito sa Philippines. So, meron tayong gender roles. For example, pag male ka, dapat kugihan ka, dapat you're strong, stronger than women, right? Yun yung mga gender roles natin. Ano yung gender mo? Yan dapat, ito dapat yung roles mo. Yun yung gender roles, okay? So, we are even um, influenced by this, by our gender roles. That is why we have our own definition of ourselves. For example, pag male ka, you're strong, you're independent, ganon. Meron siguro dito sa inyo 10 adjectives nyo na ganon because you are male or you are a man. siguro you are oriented by that. You are oriented by your family na dapat ganun ka. Okay? So, gender roles yun. Pag female naman, siguro I am weak or ano ba, I am caring, ganun. Kasi babae ka. So, sometimes we do adopt the motherly culture na napasa sa atin ng ating society. Okay? So we have our different gender roles. Our family is the best influencer sa atin because we raised and born inside a family. Okay? Not a family like a biological family. Baka meron ditong walang pamilya, walang true biological family raised and born by different family, but that's your family. Okay, we're not talking about biological family here. We're talking about the family that you are growing in, you grew in. Okay, so yun yung family, sila talaga yung merong malaking influence sa iyo as you grow old. Okay, because yan yung step, I mean your first yung overall, yun yung sociological point of view ng okay. Can you st- can you still hear me? All right. Nag-ano kasi.
Putol-putol, ma'am.
Yes,
Opo,
putol-putol,
ma'am.
sorry. Nag-lag
Tol,
yung ano
ma'am.
ko. Okay. So overall, that's it. The sociological point of view of defining the self is about our environment, where what environment we raised in, we grew in. Okay, wait a minute. All right. So yun yung sociological point of view. So we have the social construction theory. Okay. So ito parang pahapyaw lang ang sinasabi ko, but you must study pa rin. Okay. You must study your slides. You must research about it. Kung hindi nyo naintindihan, you can raise questions in May sa aking FB Messenger if you do have questions. But basically, that's it. The sociological point of view of defining the self is about your culture. Ano yung kultura natin? For example, yung patriarchal society and all, your gender roles, yung gender mo, yung gender identity, I forgot to discuss. Your gender identity, ang environment mo naman has big influence sa gender identity mo, right? So I think we can discuss that later on or next week siguro yung gender identity because I lacked that here. Okay, so thank you so much. Okay, wait a minute. Before we will leave